Hey, how are you, my friend? July is here and I'm so excited. For the past few days, I've been interviewing so many people, been working extra hard to produce content that is fun and good. I'm a little tired, but I'm very excited. I feel like a lot is happening lately at a personal level and also in the world. It really is hard to keep up with everything sometimes. For example, yesterday I was reading about Britney Spears' case, and may I disrespectfully say, bitches need to free Britney. Boy, that felt good to say. I blame the coffee that I'm drinking right now. It's Peruvian coffee, by the way. You know, I love Cuban cortaditos. I also love Colombian coffee. But Peruvian coffee just holds a special place in my heart. It really does. And I know I sound biased because I'm Peruvian, but really, I had foreign friends try it and give an honest review. And they were all shocked on how good it tastes, especially in the morning, in a crispy cold morning. You know what else makes me happy? Today's guest. His name is Ray, and I'm honestly so grateful that he agreed to do this interview. Ray happens to be dyslexic and also a writer. He's opening an agency for writers who may struggle to find their path in their careers. Through his writing agency, his purpose is to empower dyslexic and minority writers. He believes in diversity, inclusivity, and of course, a fair pay for their talent. We discussed his early years of education and the challenges young Ray had to face. He tells us how he got diagnosed with dyslexia in his college years and how this helped him fuel his passion for pursuing his goals as a writer. He tells us about his book, The Golden Boy, and the process of publishing it. And no, The Golden Boy is not about Ray. We also discuss the fears of turning 30, aging, and relationships, even mental health. We honestly talked a little bit of everything, and I loved everything about this interview. Let's welcome Ray Berry. Hi, Ray. How are you? Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview.
Hi, I am doing well, thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy. And, like we were discussing before, I found your video on TikTok and I immediately became inspired. I was so happy for you, even though I didn't know you as a person. I was like, oh my God, he did that. I was just immediately pumped. And I think I saw it on a day that I was personally feeling down and just like questioning things and why this, what am I doing? And just seeing other people like going through different struggles just gave me perspective. So I'm really happy. And we will be discussing little by little your experience in your journey. But let's start with your childhood. You mentioned you have dyslexia. How old were you when you got diagnosed?
I was actually really late. So I got diagnosed when I was about 21, 22. So actually, when I was going through school, I had never heard of dyslexia before. I had no clue what it was. I had a really rough school time. And especially in primary school, I had no clue what was up. I was really struggling, but I was excelling in certain areas as well. And then other areas I was really failing miserably. And I had no clue. I just couldn't understand it because I had this love for words and I had this love for storytelling. I couldn't do it. So I had a very frustrating primary school. So until I was about 11, 12, and then secondary school as well, I did struggle. So I got diagnosed with dyslexia very late, but better late than never, I guess.
Oh, so when you were learning, because obviously in elementary school, you learn how to write, you learn how to read little by little. What did that look like for you? Did you ever tell this to your family, to your parents, or whoever was with you? I'm having trouble with this, or because in my head, when I started reading and writing, you only learn based on what's normal, the normal to you, right? The norm. So obviously for you, it had to be a little bit different. Did you consider that was your norm, that was just what everybody was seeing?
Exactly, because no one tells you otherwise, right? So I was really struggling with reading and writing, but I was struggling with absorbing the information. So I would read this stuff on the page and I would just not take it in. And I just thought, that's how everyone learned. Everyone struggled just as much as me. But then, and we'll get into this a little bit more about like my specific dyslexia, because everyone has different levels of it. But my long-term memory is fantastic, but my short-term memory is awful. So you saw that. And now I look back at my primary school, I identify that. Those stories that I loved, I could recite to you by heart because I had got my mother to read them to me so many times. So I would know where I should be on the page, and I would be able to tell you word for word that story, but I would not be reading at all. I would just be memorizing that story. However, the first time I would try to read something, I was the slowest reader in the class. I was always finishing late. I struggled to read a paragraph out loud. If I was chosen to read out loud in class, I would get so nervous, and I would just pronounce the words, but I wouldn't take anything in. So it was really weird. And it's just something that I thought, I'm not concentrating until I found out that was a symptom of dyslexia.
Right. Were your teachers helpful? Like, did they ever like sit down and try to see what was going on? Or because there, in my opinion, based on my own experience as a student in elementary school, I had different teachers, the ones that would actually look at me and be like, something's happening. Let me sit down with her, find out what's going on, what's bothering her. And there are teachers that they just like, probably they know, but they don't care, right? They just continue because they have like, they're probably going with their own, through their own problems, and they're just doing their job, right? So what was that like for you? What were your teachers like?
So at elementary school, I had a few teachers that really, were my heroes, and they had my back through thick and thin, and they just got me. We just clicked, and we just gelled, and all of them said, Ray has something. Like on parents' evening, Ray has something. I don't know what it is, but he has something here. And then I had other teachers that just did not get me. They did not get my struggles. They did not get that. They did not get how frustrated I was with myself. And they perceived me to be a bad child because I would get frustrated in the classroom as a kid. Like I was not taking in information. I was struggling to read and to remember things. And I would let that be known because I didn't know how to deal with that frustration. But other teachers, I think, identified it. If they didn't identify it as dyslexia, they identified it as a learning difficulty. And they did support me as much as they knew how. But when I was in school, there was nowhere near as much awareness around dyslexia as there is now.
Yeah, I assume. And I think we are both the same age, right? I'm 29 right now. So
yeah, I'm 29 as well. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm so scared to reach to
30.
Me
too.
I'm so scared. I had a mental breakdown like a couple of months ago because I was like, and I don't know if you went through this, but I had like major quarter life crisis to the point that I had to sit down and journal, and like, I just had to like go inside. But anyway, so you mentioned that there are different types of dyslexia.
Yes.
Which I don't know. Tell us a little bit about that.
So there are different levels of dyslexia, and people can have dyslexia in different ways. So whereas one person may really struggle to read or write, another person may suffer with not memory loss, but retaining information. Other people may struggle with receiving directions in a certain way. So for example, they receive it better with vocal directions, but will suffer with written. Or there are a few different things. What else? Another big one is organizational skills. So dyslexic people tend to be super disorganized and just can't seem to get a grip on organizing things in general. Luckily, I'm not. I don't have that. I'm like an OCD freak, and I have everything really laid out.
Place,
yeah. But for me, so I discovered it when I was diagnosed with dyslexia. My short-term memory is in the bottom 2% of the country. So I'm awful at retaining information. I'm awful at retaining something for the first time. When I read something, I have to, sometimes I can reread a paragraph like 5 times until it's in. So that's where I really suffer. That and writing as well. I used to really struggle to just hold a pen and make the shapes that I needed to make on the page when I was taking exams and things like that. And I call them shapes. Like that's a sign of dyslexia as well. You see things so visually, you don't recognize words as letters, as a combination of letters, you see them as shapes. So I could completely misspell a word because the shape of the word for me is the same. So you'd be reading my work and be like, why the heck has he put that there? That is not the word at all. But for me, it looks the same. So
I see.
Yeah, it's really tough. There's a lot of different areas of dyslexia that people suffer with, and I have quite a few. But yeah.
Did you ever experience like bullying, from your classmates? Because, sometimes when you're at school, you compare work, you do work in groups, and I'm sure at one point you had to be in an uncomfortable situation where you had to like write down something, and how people assign, okay, you're going to write, you're going to read, you're going to do this. So did you ever experience bullying or some type of discrimination from your classmates, your peers?
I have to say I didn't. I mean, I was pretty well looked after in school. In that sense, like bullying was just zero tolerance in all of the schools that I went to. So I was really thankful there. There were times when I would feel nervous, for example, about reading out loud, or if I had to go and write something on the board and spelling it, because I just knew I cannot spell this word, and it will be a simple word. But I also learned to be super evasive and thinking on my feet, and I would get out of those situations quite smartly for such a young kid that I'd be like, I would come up with an excuse on my walk up to the chalkboard that would say that I did not need to write that word on that chalkboard. So I think I dodged a few bullets in my school time.
That's funny. I mean, that's just you to be a little creative, I think.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I'm so glad that you didn't experience bullying, because obviously this is not the case for everybody. And I'm sure there are people that have have dyslexia and didn't have the happiest childhood, and also kudos to your mom for reading and doing. I'm sure it was extra work and,
Yeah. I mean, my mom, she read to me pretty much every night. And there were, like I said, like I'm in love with literature and I love stories. And she spent hours with me reading. And that's really what got me into reading and writing and got me to where I am now, is those nights just before I go to bed. I'd have a 30-minute story read to me that I would be like, I want it again. I want to hear it again. And then I would have it memorized and locked down. And then that's stuck with me. So yeah, my mom really helped early on, even though we didn't know what she was doing, we didn't know that she was helping so much. And it's only now that I'm realizing it.
That's so sweet. What do the exams look like? I mean, I'm talking about the exams that, or the tests that they do to identify that you have dyslexia.
Sure. So when I was finally diagnosed, it was at university, and I went to a creative arts university called Falmouth University in Cornwall in the UK. And we have a lot of creative heads there, and a lot of creative heads tend to be dyslexic or dyspraxic. So we were tested for dyslexia if we wanted to. And I said, this could be something I have. So I went to get the test, and it was a 3-hour test. And it was a combination of identifying shapes on a page. It was puzzle solving, so visual problem solving issues. And you would look at different puzzle pieces and have to fit them together within a time slot. There was short-term memory tests, things like, okay, I'm going to say a number to you. I want you to say it backwards to me. And there was reading and writing timed tests, which were like, they made me sweat, like, I know how slowly I read, and having to do that under a timer. And I'm also insanely competitive. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is my worst nightmare, because it's something I want to excel in, but I can't. So the main test for dyslexia for me was around 3 hours. And the way they identify it is you massively excel. Normally a dyslexic person massively excels in one area and massively fails in another area. So I had my visual problem solving part of my brain was in the top 2% of the country, and my short-term memory was in the bottom 2% of the country. And that gap in between is like the extent of your dyslexia. So it was
sounds like a major disparity, right? How do you how does that make sense? That's interesting.
Yeah.
What was your reaction when they gave you the results?
I just got goosebumps because everything made sense.
Yeah.
Everything was just suddenly like, oh, that's why you have done this, or that's why you struggle with this. And there was just suddenly like a huge amount of relief on my whole studies, that I wasn't thick. I have this learning disability that is normal. 1 in 10 people in the UK have this disability.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, there's a name for this. It's not my level of normal. There's a name for this. And now when I have the name, I know how to treat it, which is fantastic.
That's awesome. Because it takes also the weight, I think, of your shoulders, thinking that there's like something terribly wrong with you, but that you just have something that other people don't have, and you can fix it. You can actually treat it. You can work with it. So that's super cool. Did that help at all with any self-esteem issues, or you were just relieved at this point?
It kind of justified the amount of mistakes I was making at that level in my education. Mm-hmm. So I studied English literature and creative writing, despite what all my teachers were saying.
So that was your major in college?
That was my major, yes. So I studied literature and creative writing, and then I did a master's in professional business writing. So I was pursuing this no matter what. But yeah, in my essays and things before that, I was making silly mistakes. This is what was on every single essay. Silly mistake. Like, Ray, why are you misspelling this word? And teachers were implying that I was just not concentrating. And suddenly all my silly mistakes were genuinely honest mistakes that a dyslexic person would make. So I had this huge relief of being almost validated in the work that I'm turning out. It's as best as it could have been for someone who's dyslexic, and for me to be there at one of the best creative writing schools in the UK. I was like, wow, Ray, you've done pretty well to get here. So it validated my dream, and it validated where I was at that moment in education.
So did you tell your college teachers about this, or you just went through college, kind of like pursuing your goal, your dreams, and just doing the best you can and letting them give you the appropriate grade for that?
So Falmouth University had this fantastic setup for people who suffer with dyslexia. So when I was diagnosed with dyslexia, I actually got access to so many resources. I got a voice to text laptop and tools that I could use for my essays. I got one-on-one sessions at least once a week with a professional editor and dyslexic psychologist. And I did trainings throughout my whole university on how to improve my memory, how to improve my writing, how to edit my own work, how to look for my mistakes. I had so much help. I got extra time on my exams, extra time on my coursework, which is something dyslexic children actually get in elementary school and secondary school, is they get extra time on exams that I never had because I never got diagnosed. So I would never finish an exam when I was like 11, 12 years old. I would get halfway through the exam and then the time is up and I'm like, where did that time go? Because I struggled to take in that information. So I got all this extra time in university, and I did very well because suddenly I had all these tools and resources to be able to. But I never got it up until then. So I really struggled up until then.
That's awesome. Yeah. So when you graduated college, did you immediately know you wanted to become a writer, or you just started looking for jobs and testing what's out there?
So I knew I wanted to write, not necessarily that I wanted to become a writer because it seemed so far off for me, but I knew I wanted to use my education in my day-to-day work because, I had studied with people that had studied law, people that had studied photography, like a huge array of people, but they never went into those roles. And I was like, I've paid all this money for this education. And I love writing. I really want to make this my day-to-day thing. So at the time when I graduated, which I think was around 2015, giving away my age, but anyway, I was looking for roles that I could write in regularly, and social media cropped up. And so I leaned into social media and then into content. And I like headed up a marketing team and things like that. And it's actually amazing how far writing as a skill can take you. Because at the end of the day, I'm a writer. Like, that's what I want to do. That's what I love. That's what I'm good at. But because I could write well, I just kept going. And I was in a creative director role, and I was thinking, Ray, whoa, you don't want to manage 26 people. You don't want this responsibility. What are you doing? So I was like, let's back things up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I always wanted to write, but I didn't necessarily know that a writer could be my path, so to speak. Yeah.
That's crazy. Now, you obviously, I saw a TikTok where you said you get to travel the world, or you get to travel and do the job that you like, right? How did that journey start? Like, how did you start traveling and actually, being able to be in different parts of the world and writing at the same time? And you also play volleyball, which I'm going to ask you about.
Yes. I'm a massive beach volleyball fan.
I love that. I wish I was good at it.
Well, I was actually one of the places I've been to was Lima, Peru. So
I saw that.
I tried to get beach volleyball there, but I couldn't find any, which was a shame.
Yeah.
No, so I've always had a love for traveling, and social media took me to this work and travel program called Remote Year. And I ended up being their social media manager. And Remote Year, the whole idea of it was and is, if you have a remote job, you can take it on the road with you, and you spend 1 month in a new city every month for either 12 months, 4 months, or 6 months, or something like that. So I ended up being their social media manager, and it all started when there was a few spaces on a program empty. And so the company said to me, Ray, we want to put you on this program, find some influencers, and you're leaving next month to Peru. And I was like, wow.
It's kind of like a dream job, right? Because you get to travel.
Wow. Honestly, I have moments in that job where I was like, you are so, I don't want to say you're lucky, because you work for everything, right? And
of course.
It's not luck, it's determination. And I got to, my final destination was Mexico City, and I was in a hot air balloon. And my job was to go on that hot air balloon ride over Mexico City and take photos and make sure people enjoy themselves. The influencers enjoyed themselves and had fun. I was just thinking, what the heck? How are you getting paid to do this? What is going on? So that company really sparked how creative I can be and how inspired I can be on the road. And from working with that company and beyond, I was traveling, up until the crisis, I was traveling as much as I possibly could, writing, because I was at my most creative when I was in new environments and inspiring environments.
I love it. You just reminded me of something I read not too long ago. It was like a memoir from Anne Lamott. It was like Bird by Bird. It's just like an excerpt from her memoir. And she was talking about her father and like how he was a writer, et cetera, et cetera. And she said something like, being a writer in general gives you the excuse to experience different things, right? Like travel and try this food and drink this and go see this, because you want to write about it. You want perspective. You want to kind of like, gain as much knowledge from whatever source it is, and just it gives you the excuse, I guess, to do all these things, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna jump off a plane. It's for writing. I'm researching,
Yes. Yes, I need this cool. This spa retreat. It's for research, I promise. It's true. You are at your most inspired and your most creative when you're in these environments. And I was thriving. I really was. So
awesome. So how does playing volleyball fit in all of this? Like, when did you actually started like adding this sport, or were you always, a volleyball player?
No, so actually, I found beach volleyball when I joined university, because Falmouth University is a coastal it's a coastal town. So I saw some guys playing beach volleyball one day, and I said, "Wow, that looks so fun! I want to do that." So I picked up there, and I fell in love with the sport. My goodness, I can play beach volleyball for 8-9 hours a day and not get tired. Forget about food. Forget about any worries, problems. I'm just absolutely living. I adore beach volleyball. It's a bug. And so I got into it at university, and it's actually the reason I now live in Barcelona. It's the reason I moved to Barcelona, is to play more beach volleyball, because I was just not able to do it as much as I wanted to in London. So I've been here 6 years now, and beach volleyball pushed me here. And has kept me here ever since, because I can just, finish my working day, 10 minutes, I'm on the beach, and living my dream. Absolutely. So I'm really happy.
That's amazing. And I was telling you earlier, before this interview started, that you must speak Spanish. I mean, 6 years is a long time,
Sí, yo puedo hablar.
Chaval.
Pero tú hablas un poco diferente que yo.
Sí.
Porque mi español es más de aquí, y cuando estaba en Perú era súper complicado para mí.
Sí. No.
Yeah, I had a really big problem with saying juice, for example. I think
jugo?
You call it jugo and we call it zumo. So I was in a restaurant, I said, yo quiero un zumo de naranja. And they were like, eh? Zumo. I don't know how many times I could say it. And it was small things like this, where you think you're speaking the same language, but actually you're not. It's different.
I think it also, there are other countries inside Latin America where, for example, pig, the animal, right? They don't call it, like, for example, in Peru, we call it cerdo. Right. Yeah. But in other countries, they call it cochino, they call it marrano, they call it. So it's like certain words also vary. Yeah. And there's also like the Z pronunciation. That's also, that's super, super cool. I mean, you must have been, other than the sumo, you must have been able to like communicate easy with people here in Peru.
Yeah. I mean, so I went with this travel program, and most of their clientele are US based. And I ended up being the translator for most of us, like when we were at dinners and things like that. So awesome. It did help a lot. Definitely.
Did you try the pisco?
Yes, of course. The first night I was there. It's incredible.
They say it's a dangerous drink because you can't drink like many of them, and you will only know you're drunk until you get up, and you start walking.
Yes.
Which happened to many of my friends.
I do miss Peru for the food. My goodness, the food and drink is just incredible.
Yeah, that's what I miss. I live, in the US. I went to college there, and I'm originally from Peru. I was born and raised here, but moved when I was 17. So every time I'm in the US, I just like miss the food. I'm always like, and I'm trying to find the right ingredients to recreate some of the dishes, but it's just not the same. Even the spices taste different. Just very different. So let's go back a little bit to your idea for your book, The Golden Boy, right? Which I haven't read. I want to read it so bad. And when I do, I'm going to probably ask you to do a live just to focus on that book. But when did you come up, or how, first of all, did you always know you were going to write a book? Did you have this idea like in your mind? Sure. Because a lot of writers, they say, oh, this idea, I had it like 10 years ago, but I never really did it, like I never wrote it. So was that the same for you?
So I was writing stories and poetry from as young as I could pick up a pen. And I always wanted to see my name in print and to write a book. So it was part of actually my, we say university, you say college. My college university degree was to do a 20,000 word short story. And the prompt for the story was to take an expression that we say every day and to make it a reality. For example, it's raining cats and dogs outside. Super British expression. Okay, so what would happen if it actually rained cats and dogs one day? So that was our prompt. And so for this short story, I took the expression, you have a heart of gold, and I made it a reality. So I said, okay, what would happen if you were born with a heart of gold? Okay, of course, you would not be able to live. However, the promise is there that you are just such a kind and good person. And so the story emerged of this woman called Barbara, who unfortunately has a stillbirth, and she writes a series of letters to her son, Aidan, overcoming the loss of this baby that was born with a heart of gold. And the story follows her through her years of grief, and she befriends a child in the town that she lives in, and it becomes a very questionable relationship, and she starts to blur the lines between what is real and what is not, and tries to replace her baby with someone else's child. So it's a psychological thriller. It's very dark, very, very dark. And actually, my dyslexic tutor helped me a lot with it. And the first time we met, we were going to review this 20,000 words. And she saw my name, Ray, and she thought I was going to be this woman that had lost the baby, and that this was going to be a really tough session. And I walked in as this 21-year-old kid guy that had clearly not had a baby. And she said, what the heck? How the heck did you manage to capture exactly what this woman is going through? Because it's written from this main character's point of view.
Right.
And I said, I don't know, but the story's flowing. And then I got my feedback on that story. It got a first, so it got the top level that it can get. And I got my feedback, and my teacher said, Ray, you have something here. You need to explore this. So from university onwards, I was writing it on and off. And then I took 6 months off of work to become a full-time writer and to finish that book. And I published it 2 years ago now, I think. Last year's a bit of a write-off, so I always forget now. But I think it's 2 or 3 maybe.
What was the process like of, finishing the script, the manuscript, and then getting a publisher to do it? Or did you self-publish? How did you do?
So I actually got a small publishing house in the US to publish the book, because I had no clue what to do. I had no clue how to edit. I had no clue about the whole process. Now I do. So once they published the book, I actually took the rights back and self-published it, because I didn't need that help, and I felt like I could promote the book better myself. So I actually took it all back for me. And now in the future, I'm always going to self-publish. I publish through Amazon self-publishing, and they actually have like a ton of support and resources for self-published authors. So I'm going to keep doing that. And yeah, that's the way I'll run things, I think, from now on.
Awesome. I love how technology and just everything, I mean, there are so many things that we can do now that people could not do 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, you had to go through so much. And even I said this to the other day to another person that I was interviewing, even to just make music, for example, before you had to get discovered. I mean, this record labels had to like you, and then, they owned what you did, and then you had to like sign a contract and do what they tell you. But it was more structured, I feel like, in order for people to even listen to your music. I mean, now you can just like publish your own music. Spotify will do the job. TikTok will add, YouTube. I mean, there's so much help.
The power is in our hands now, for sure. Like with tech, we have so much ownership of what we create, more than ever. And I think it's actually so delightful to see. I know a lot of people don't agree with Amazon, but the amount of support that they're giving to small-time authors, I think is fantastic. So I'm really thankful for technology and some of these big corporations to be supporting and enabling the little guys that, will keep working until they get that big break.
Yeah, I love it. What was the hardest part of writing your book? I mean, I know that you said you got help, but as far as the story, right? Did you
Yeah.
ever experience writer's block? Were you ever in a position where you were like, where is this character going? How am I going to end it? A lot of writers focus a lot on the last portion of the book, the last page, the last chapter. So what was that like for you?
So Golden Boy is really character led. So I'm writing from Barbara's point of view. And I think the biggest challenge for me was the emotional exhaustion of writing from this woman that has lost a child. I would be writing, in the peak of it, I was writing for like 5-6 hours a day straight, spending 5 or 6 hours a day in this character's mind. I was distraught. There'll be times where I'll be writing and I would be sobbing about what was happening.
Yeah.
Like the scene was just playing out in front of me, when I was writing, it was like watching a movie. We're dyslexic, we're visual people. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening right now as I was typing it out. So my friends would say, hey, do you want to meet tonight? Let's go out and have some drinks or whatever. I said, I can't. Like, I'm done. I have had a day. I've had a really tough day.
Yeah.
You've been writing all day. No, I've been in this other character's head. Yeah. So I think that was the biggest struggle, was like the emotional exhaustion of writing from someone else's point of view that was going through such a tough time. That was tough on me as well.
Yeah, I imagine it can take like an emotional toll on you, and
it does. It really does. And my second book, I'm writing my second book now, and the same thing is happening. So I have to take a lot of breathing space from it every now and again.
Is this like a sequel, or it's just a completely different story?
So the second book is called Kelly and the Willow Tree, and it's going to be set in the same town, but follow someone else's life.
Okay.
And I want my books to have this kind of world where characters will just pass each other by. And if you're a fan of the books, you will say, oh, I wonder if that is so-and-so from Golden Boy, or I wonder if that is so-and-so from, and then they're gone. So I want the real like keen readers to be able to spot them and say, oh my gosh, that's
and wonder about
Kelly
them
from this. Yeah. So it's kind of not a sequel, but it's definitely tied together.
I love that. Do you ever experience the famous imposter syndrome, when now you have a book, obviously, and you're writing your second one and you're doing what you love, but like, do you ever have those moments when you're like, am I really a writer? Is this like just me and, this things that I'm creating, but like, does that mean I have the title, am I entitled to my own success?
That's such a tough question, because it just depends on the day. It depends on your mood. It depends on so much. I mean, sometimes I've felt like, Ray, you're not a writer. What are you doing? You've published a book, okay, but it's not sold millions of copies. You haven't like skyrocketed into the charts like you hear of these miraculous stories. You're not a J.K. Rowling. But then other days you're like, Ray, you wrote a book. Come on, give yourself a pat on the back. Like you published this book, people are buying it. Of course it's not selling millions every month, but it's still selling. So it depends on your mood. It depends on how mentally strong you are that day. I've definitely suffered with it a few times, but then other times people put it into perspective for me and they say, but Ray, you did all of this and you're not even 30. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I have to give myself some credit.
Yeah. This is something I learned from David Goggins, which is I don't know if it's the exact exercise that he does. My goodness, my dog. But I kind of took it as my own little exercise and kind of, tweaked a few things. So what I learned to do now is I grabbed like a jar, like an actual like mason jar, and just wrote like little pieces, like tiny little pieces of paper, and wrote like achievements, right? Things that I did that I consider like are good. And I just like fold them and put them all in a jar. So now I keep collecting that, right? And every time I go through that and I'm like questioning everything, and just like in general, quarter life crisis, I'm about to hit 30 and I'm like questioning everything, I tend to grab those little piece of paper, open them and read in. This is what you did. Like sometimes you need perspective and reminders, because sometimes we're not always going to be surrounded of people, that with people that are going to remind us those things. And especially when we experience loneliness, which obviously you've been very open about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about your own, personal experiences. But going back to the imposter syndrome, that's something that I do. So maybe that's something you could do as well.
I love that. I love that idea.
What did it feel like when you held your book and, had a physical, tangible thing, looking at it and you're like, I did this?
It was odd. It was so odd. There were a few stages in the road to publishing that were just mind-blowing. One was when I did the first draft of the manuscript and I printed it out and I had it on my kitchen table and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so many words. And then the final draft of the manuscript, and then getting my book in my hands, I was just like, wow, this is a real thing. Like holding it makes it so real. And I think when we go back to talking about imposter syndrome and things like that, when you hold a physical book in your hand and you see your name on that cover, you're like, no, Ray, you've done really well. Like, give yourself a break. So it was a really real moment of you hit a massive life dream and you still have a lot of years to go. Like, let's make more dreams right now.
Yeah, I love that. So, has your family read it? Did they give you feedback or?
Yeah. So most of my family have read it. My mum sees a lot of my childhood in the book. There are a few very specific stories that small things that the kids do, habits, ways of speaking, little clumsy actions that my mum's like, that you did that, or your sister did that. There's one story in particular that like happened to me and my sister. I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but happened with our family. And my mum's like, I can't believe you put that in the book. And it's just so funny because it's a good thing, by the way. There's a lot of dark things in that book, but it's a good thing. And there's a lot of me and my childhood and my relationship with my sister in that book, and the relationships that you see. So my family find it very close to home.
Awesome. That must be so cool. Were you nervous when you knew they were reading it? Did you like go away and don't talk to me until you finish it, or what was that like for you?
I mean, my mum was my first reader throughout, so she kind of saw the story evolving and things like that. Other family members, I was a little bit unnerved when they were reading it, because when people read the title Golden Boy, they think it's going to be about, I've labeled myself as Golden Boy and it's about me. And then they don't actually read the blurb. They just read the book and they're like, Ray, this is really haunting. This is really, you're such a happy guy. Where does this story come from? This is disturbing. So I think it rattled me a little bit to think that some of my family members that have known me since a kid see you writing this kind of like psychological thriller. They're like, what is going on in this man's head?
I was going to say that because, when you're like a really positive person, you're really happy, like you would think people are inclined to write about happy things or positivism or just like stuff that is like positive, right? But in your genre, you kind of have to have I assume you have to go dark a little bit and like, because otherwise, how do you create that drama? That the problems in your book.
I mean, the way I look at films, any art form, is to tell a story and evoke an emotion from the person that you're telling that story to. Whether that's with music, whether that's with film, whether that's with a book, you want to evoke an emotion from someone that they don't usually feel. Every day we have easy access to happiness if we're living a good life. We do not have easy access to fear, to being thrilled, and to being scared. These emotions are a lot harder for us to connect with on a daily basis. So when people want to read and experience some kind of story, they want to feel these emotions that they typically don't feel. And books and films and things are the closest they can get to that without putting themselves at risk. So they have this kind of adrenaline rush and this emotional escapism that you can't get in your daily life. And that's what I like to create, is these little worlds that you can tap into with and experience these emotions in a safe environment, but is like you're in them, and you feel them, and it's terrifying at the same time. So,
do you ever have nightmares from your own like ideas and writings? Like, do you ever have a dream you're like, oh my God, this is like, this is what I was just writing?
When I was writing as the main character, as Barbara Bridges, when I was writing as her, I was having dreams as her as well. And that was really intense. Like I was in that character's head for 6 months solid. And I would wake up and be like, I'm Barbara right now. Yeah. It was crazy. So yeah, I definitely experienced like a few nightmares of hers along the way.
I read somewhere that when you finish a book and you say goodbye to the character, it feels like mourning a little bit. Did that happen to you? Did you have like that withdrawal period where you were like, I'm done with the book? Like, it's like you're saying goodbye to something that you dedicated a small, a portion of your life. Like, did that happen to you?
Yeah. I had a huge amount of fear kind of letting my baby go into the world. I created this little book that I was so proud of, regardless of what anyone else said. And I had this huge amount of fear of thinking, art is so subjective, and to give access to the world to be able to read what I hold as so precious is going to be really, it scares me, the feedback I could potentially get. Luckily so far, I've not got any negative feedback, and some of my friends that are not in my target demographic as a reader have read it, and that's like really unnerving. Like my beach volleyball guy mates that are not anything to do with this, they've read it and they said, wow, Ray, it's a great book. And I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah,
these are the people that can really hit home and be like, I didn't get it, it was rubbish,
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it is unnerving to know that anyone can buy it and anyone can give you feedback on it. Definitely.
Awesome. So obviously this is your work, but you're also a B2B writer. What does that mean?
Yes.
And what is the type of writing that you do on this side?
Yes. So B2B means business to business. And I write for businesses that sell products or services to other businesses. So I help out with SEO content to help them rank on Google. I help them with thought leadership pieces. I help them with web copy, emails, all of this sort of stuff.
Okay, awesome. So it's more technical. It's not creative per se.
There's a lot of technical writing to it. There's a lot of technical pieces, how-to pieces. But there's also, I love the thought leadership stuff. And I write about diversity in the workplace. I write about inclusion in the workplace. I write a lot of HR related articles that are, you have a lot more creative freedom. And they're those pieces that are setting that business ahead of their competitors. So I really enjoy this side of writing as well. And this side of the writing is what pays the bills at the moment. So, and this side of the writing is actually what is taking off right now. So I'm really happy there.
I'm very happy to ask you about that too. I noticed you posted a TikTok that you're very close to opening an agency. How did that, I mean, is this something you were like, oh, I need to do it to help myself with the time, management, or is this something that you actually want to build as a, I guess, as a business?
It's crazy because I used to work for a co-working space last year. And when the crisis hit, our salaries got cut, and I had to take up writing to make up my 100% salary that I relied on. So, but then July last year, I was walking out of the first lockdown with, I think, 6 or 7 writing clients and earning more with those writing clients than I was earning on my 100% salary from the co-working space. And I was thinking, Ray, why are you going back to the co-working space? You know, you're working for yourself. every penny you earn is yours. And you're working on relationships that you are building, and you have put all of this work in. You are creating what is essentially a brand for yourself. So I started officially writing as a full-time writer, as a business writer, July last year. And every month I've earned more. Every month I've been writing for bigger clients. And it's just taking off. And I've noticed a gap in the market for quality writers. You know, brands are really struggling to find quality writers, and brands are more inclined now than ever to pay for quality and to pay knowing that the money is going back to the writer. There are a lot of agencies out there that outsource to very low income countries, and I feel like they exploit talent. And that is not what I want to do at all. So I want to start this writing agency, and I want to empower like all diverse writers of any minority group to write and to be paid fairly and equally for your talent and your what you're able to do.
Awesome.
Not for where you live geographically. So this is a big thing for me that I'm really passionate about. You can tell that I'm getting really fired up right now.
I love it.
And so actually, when I started leaning on the idea of an agency, it was to help me with my workload. But actually now I'm like, Ray, you have something bigger here. You have a real mission, and you have a real vision, and you have a very powerful purpose.
I love it.
It's to empower dyslexic and minority group writers to write and to be paid fairly for your work. You know, it's like fair trade coffee, right? You want the cash to go right back to the farmer. And with this agency, I want the cash to go right back to the writer.
I love it. I mean, yeah, definitely. This sounds huge. And I know you're going to make it happen, because you also have a lot of people supporting you. I mean, look at me, you know, I saw you on TikTok and I was immediately hooked, and I was like, I want to like support this person. I want to like read his book, you know, just because you started sharing your story. And out of that, I feel like, when you have a good intention on things, I feel like things just like automatically start happening. And of course, not to take the credit from you, but it really is like, I'm very big on also manifesting and, you know, the law of attraction and everything. So I feel like when you have the right intention and you have all the energy for it, and we're going to talk a little bit about resilience, but when you're just like all of that, right? I feel like the opportunities are endless, and it's like your mind is like, all right, these are the ideas, you do whatever it is that you want to do with them, you know? And I feel like that's what's happening to you. I love that. I love that you're also very supportive of diversity and inclusivity. And I noticed that you also openly discuss being, you know, gay on your TikTok, and just share because obviously we have somehow romanticized some certain things, especially with social media and everything. And you're very open about the fact that, you know, it's hard to be a 29-year-old male and also gay, and you have expressed how lonely sometimes it is. And I read people like supporting you and being like, hey, this is just a small moment in your time, in your life. It's going to get better and everything. But like, I love how open you are about certain things. And I feel like you have built resilience, or you are in the process of building resilience. So
in the process, definitely.
What do you think is the one thing that's like pushing you? Like, I'm sure there are ups and downs like everybody, but when you're down, what is that one thing? What do you think is that one thing that like pushes you to get up?
I would not say I'm an expert on it at all. I would say it's a journey and a process that I am learning every single day. And you know what? When I was younger, I was not ashamed to be gay, but I wasn't wearing it on my wrist. You know, I felt like I could be a gay guy and still excel in my career and other areas without having to tell people that I was gay, or they wouldn't have to know. However, now that I'm getting older, I feel like, Ray, you're doing your community a disservice. And actually you should be standing up and representing these people and being like, hey, I'm gay, I'm dyslexic, look what I'm doing. And it's actually, TikTok has been fantastic for this. I've been so open and honest to the point where I never thought I would be talking about being gay on TikTok and potentially having, thousands of people see it.
Yeah.
And I have, and I've just built this incredible support network out there. I had one video that really took off just as I got out of a relationship that I had really struggled with. And the amount of messages I had over 100 Instagram DMs from TikTok. So people have gone over to my Instagram and reached out to me and been like, thank you for being honest. Thank you for not using a filter. Thank you for keeping it real and letting me know that I am not alone. And I had a lot of young gay guys being like, I'm terrified too. I'm terrified of getting old. I'm terrified of dying alone, and that this community is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
But I had over 100 Instagram DMs telling me this community is toxic. So it's not. It's just that the toxic side is all you see sometimes, or the perfect side is all you see. There are a lot of gay guys out there that are in exactly the same boat as me. We just don't know we're in the same boat because we've got blinkers on. So I feel like my TikTok has opened my world up to this incredible community that has got my back, and I've got theirs. Like, I reply to every single one. I do voice notes with a lot of them regularly. Like, hey, how's it going? How's your day going? Like, how are your goals going? And we've got each other's back. So I'm really happy I've done it, and I will continue to do it because I'm proud to be gay.
Yeah.
And I never thought that I would be leading it. I would be leading my career with being gay, but I am, because I feel like I should represent the truth of what it means to be gay. And I'm happy to do that.
I love it. And I feel like also, without even maybe acknowledging or realizing, you're also representing us, the people that are transitioning from millennials, I guess, transitioning from their 20s until their 30s. And there are so many. I talked to once to my friend who happened to be going through depression, and she's like, I don't think people realize how hard it is to age, to leave your years of youth and happiness, and just I'll do whatever it is that I want until I figure it out, and you're really transitioning, and the pressure that, even though it's 2020, 2021 now, there's still that pressure, right? Like, come on, I heard it. I had it myself. Like, people ask me, are you trying to have kids in the next 3 years? Your body's ticking, and I'm like, I am nowhere close to that. And, I have friends who have kids and are married and everything. And I am in a relationship, but it's I'm not there yet. I feel very far, and it's not that it can't happen or that it's not the right person. It's just I feel mentally sometimes you are not there yet, and that's okay. Right. Or you sometimes I have another friend who's desperately looking for love. And I told her, it's it'll happen when it happens. Right. But sometimes it's hard to hear that, but when you see other people, you feel the pressure when you're alone. But when you see other people 100%. Going through that, you're like, all right, I'm good. Everybody's good. It's not like this. Of course, what you said, we have, I guess we're following or we are only exposed to the toxic culture. And finally, I feel like I'm finding myself in the right algorithm in TikTok, finding people that are that are real, and they're just in the same boat, like you said, going through the same problems. We're good. We're good.
Social media is enabling that. Social media is enabling us to be scared, and it's becoming a place where you can be completely yourself, unapologetically yourself, and find support. I'm terrified of getting old. I'm absolutely terrified. But a lot of other people are as well. And I think the problem with especially people our age is we don't feel like we have a right to complain, because there's so much other stuff going on in the world that people have it a lot worse. And people are like, so what? You're turning 30. What are you whining about? And I'm like, but I'm turning 30. So we feel like we have to keep that to ourselves of or
invalidate our feelings in a way.
Yes, exactly. But actually, like, all of our feelings are valid. They're very real. Um, and it's very empowering to speak them out loud and to have people echo them back and be like, hey, yeah, I'm in that boat too. Yes, let's go together, you know?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Do you ever receive like hate messages, criticism, people saying, ugh, what you're doing is wrong, or how could you be being so open about this, like recording
Right.
yourself in your most vulnerable, times? Like, I would never do that. Do you ever get that?
So when that first video went viral on TikTok, I was actually terrified of getting so much hate. Um, and the thing is, so I just jumped out the shower. I was having like one of, I'm not sure if you have them. I'm not sure if other people have them. They're like post shower thoughts, and you just sit on your bed in the towel and you just kind of like drift off into another realm.
Yeah.
I had one of those, and I just recorded that video of exactly how I felt. I posted it and I went out to meet my friends, and it blew up while I was out. So it had like 50,000 views. By the time I looked at my phone again, I was like, what?
Were you afraid to open the app and like see?
Yeah. Because I don't have notifications on for TikTok or Instagram or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I opened Instagram while I was out, and I had like it was on the maximum thing that it can be on. I was thinking, what the heck is going on? I said, oh, fudge, I posted that video. I went on TikTok and it was even more. And I had, out of those messages, I think I had like close to 2,000 comments or something. I had one comment that I read that was negative. One comment out of 2,000 that said, it's the whining for me. And I was like, whatever. And then I had underneath, in reply to that comment, I had like 20 people being like, hey, pipe down. Let this guy speak his feelings. If you don't want to be here, you can leave. And I was just like, I'll let these guys sort it out.
I know.
And that's it. Like, I have not received any other, any other, let alone hate, like even the slightest negative comment I have not received. And I don't know why. I thank TikTok for sending me to good people on the algorithm, because I know there are a lot of trolls out there, but so far, touch wood, I'm safe.
Yeah, good. That's good. How do you think you're going to react? I mean, because obviously eventually, as you get more and more noticed, and obviously you're going to continue posting more content, I'm sure eventually you'll run into somebody, another naysayer, right?
I think so.
What do you think is going to be your reaction? Like, are you always going to let the fans deal with them, battle?
The fans. So I have a very good friend of mine. Her name is Ariel, and she's an influencer. And Instagram is Ariel Says. And she was basically a BuzzFeed success story. She lost a lot of weight through Weight Watchers, and she has a lot of these articles out there that are ancient articles about her weight loss journey. And actually, like, her weight loss journey, she was extremely unhappy. She was not living herself. She was not living her truth. And now she is her size that she is comfortable with. And she's bigger than she was when she was at the peak of her weight loss. Okay. And so people find these old articles, they go to her Instagram, which is still linked the same, and they say, hey, you're a liar, you're a cheater, you said you did all of this stuff. And these articles are like 7-8 years old or more, I don't know. But the way she deals with these messages, I find really inspiring. And I have a lot of respect for this girl. I think she's a wonderful woman. And I love how she deals with hate messages. If I ever get to that state like this, she's a full-time, influencer, content creator. She manages influencer marketing campaigns for different companies as well. If I were to ever get to as big as her and I received hate in any way, I would look to her for guidance, because I think she deals with it in a really positive way. So
I love that. That's awesome, because sometimes, the negative can really, you can have 1,000 good comments and there will be that one comment that will and you will focus on that one and ruin your day. Yeah. And why do we tend to be like that? I don't know.
We're our own demons.
It's definitely
part of human nature. You fixate on one negative thing, and it's just changing the mindset to focusing on, hey, you got all these positive things. So let's look over there.
I'm sure that you will also get approached by the right people who will also potentially, I can see that. I mean, I'm not any type of witch or anything, but I can see people wanting you to speak your truth and speak about your journey too. Do you have any like public speaking abilities, skills, or how are you going to deal with that happens? Because I can see that happening.
Yeah, I'm speaking at this neurodiversity pride on the 17th of June from that TikTok video.
I'll see.
I'm comfortable. I love it. I think, I used to do a lot of theater as a kid, and if I can talk about, I'm not an expert at all. Like, I'm just a guy that is getting by, you know, but if I can inspire one more person to live a happier lifestyle, to focus more on what they want to do, or to be more honest and truthful with themselves, I'll be so happy. So for as uncomfortable as it makes me feel, you know what, it's worth it if I can make someone feel more comfortable with where they are.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. I have one last question for you. What
Tell
advice would you give to someone who's afraid to pursue her or his dreams because of any reading, learning, or any other types of disabilities, or just, challenges?
I would say educate yourself. If you have a disability, or if you are a minority, or you feel like you are not included in any way, educate yourself, because there is a group of people that are exactly the same as you. No one is going through any one thing alone. So find your people, find your community, and build that up and stay there in that safe bubble, and let others lift you up and empower you, because there are people out there. There are a lot of kind people out there, and they will have your back if you have theirs. So I would say, if anyone is ever scared to chase their dreams, or scared to take the risk or make the jump, find people in your boat that are going in your direction and run with them. And don't be afraid to hold their hands and ask for help, ask for support, because you will really benefit from it.
I love that. That's such good advice. You can tell that it comes from a very honest heart. I love that.
Yeah. I'm finding my people.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it. I love it because honestly, I feel like nowadays we don't know each other. We have never seen each other in person, but I feel like we're already like a village. You know, and that's what you build. You build a village. So I love it.
Yeah. Start with a village, and then in a few years' time, we'll go on to building cities.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Ray. I love that.
No worries. I love
we were able to chat this and have this conversation, and just in general get to know you, because I can tell you're very passionate about what you do, and I cannot wait to see what you will do next. I cannot wait to read your book. I'm going to actually make it my goal, and I'm sure I'll have questions.
Yeah,
and I'll be like,
we can do a book club.
Yeah. No, I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this episode. You liked what you heard? Tell me what you liked in the review section. And if you want more episodes like this, please share your suggestions. After this episode, I invite you to follow the Invernadero Mind Podcast Facebook page, where you'll be able to find show notes, resources, and other information about this episode. I can't wait to see you there.